Welcome to Now I See. Now I See is a dedicated program to discovering people's journeys from the darkness to finding Christ's light. Today, we're very lucky and privileged to be joined by two guests, Jonati and Catherine. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Can we start by learning a little bit about yourselves?
Sure. I'm first generation Australian. I was raised by a Sudanese Syrian mother and a Sudanese Egyptian father. And my mother had us baptised Catholic, and my father came to the church in full practice a bit later in life, and I got my first introduction through Sunday school. And I am the lovely wife of Jonati and mother of 3 children.
Yeah. I'm Jonati. I was born in Fiji, raised in New Zealand, and moved to Australia about 7-8 years ago.
Yeah.
And yeah.
How did you two meet? If you can tell us.
Sure.
Yeah, we can tell you.
I was in a career that took me out of the country a lot, and on one of my trips back from LA, I had to spend 24 hours in Brisbane, and Jonati happened to arrive on a flight from New Zealand the same day into Brisbane, and I didn't know him obviously, but we'd seen each other in passing of that evening, and in like a strike of electricity, we just took each other's numbers, and I went back to Sydney the next day, and he went back to New Zealand.
Wow.
And we basically had a date once a month in a different country.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so for 6 months, and then he moved to Sydney for me.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
And you've been married for how long now?
5 years.
5 years.
Going on 6.
Yeah, 5 years.
Wow. And 3 children?
3
Yes.
children, aged 3 and under.
Beautiful.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Mm.
So the purpose of this program, Now I See, is we try and discover and unpack how someone may have come, not necessarily from a dark place or a darkness, but certainly now we know we will unpack that you two are now seeing Christ's light. But can you talk about a time in your lives where you perhaps didn't know Christ well, or weren't close, or didn't know anything much at all about Christianity?
Yeah, I think for me, God has always been in the picture. God has always been in my life. That's probably from my grandparents right through to my parents instilling Christianity, talking to us about God, and obviously taking us to church.
Okay.
So I was baptised Catholic, brought up in the Catholic Church, and yeah, that's God has always been there for me. God has always been there in my life, whether I was attending church or not attending church. He was always there.
Okay.
And for me, I think it was an experience where I was always raised in the church by mum and dad's perhaps fulfilling the expectations of culture and community as well. So we were a lot in attendance, but truthfully, proactivity of living a Christian life was scarce, and I was more repelled by the experience of how I'd come to see God through their perceptions,
Right.
or how they had expressed their judgments using God.
Okay.
And it was very hard for me to build my own relationship through them.
Right. It wasn't for you their
No.
version of
Yes.
Christianity. So would you say there was a time then, therefore, where it just didn't feature in your life, do you think? Or
Yeah, I would say I predominantly lived without an experience of Christ until I was 21. And when I was 12, I did attend a Coptic Orthodox Sunday school for about 1 year. And my Sunday school teacher at that point, who I'm still very close with,
wow.
She took to me and understood my rebellion to give it time to understand I was hurt.
Yes.
She took my back chat as my inquiry if anyone heard me. Am I heard? So with a perception of empathy, my eyes opened to a twinkle of Christ.
Yes, yeah.
But by the time I was 21, I was really furious at everybody's ability to have a connection, and I didn't have that story, as well as all the layers and filters I had been seeing God through that had maybe obscured
Yes.
my ability to have a
Yeah.
relationship. So I worked hard on that journey on my own, with my own reading and my own prayer,
Okay.
and being alongside people that were like-minded. And I would say that was the strongest point of my faith when I was 21.
Wow.
Yeah.
And within your life, how you were living your life, were you like always without sin, or living a life where you felt you were good, decent people, irrespective of belonging to a church or attending a church?
I would say, without turning it into a confession,
Yeah.
I'd probably say no, definitely not. Even though God was there, and I knew God was there. I definitely didn't walk that life. I wasn't about that life. I think I was just young, just
Yes.
doing my own thing. It was, just doing my thing as
Yes.
a young teen and 20-year-old, and
Yeah, exactly.
but I did. My mum and dad went into after we left the Catholic Church, Mum and Dad then ventured into found it was like a Hillsong. So
Okay.
we attended that church, and that's where Dad kind of, there was more of an awareness towards Christ and towards Christianity, and we saw that in him, and we started to slowly wake up a little bit
Yes.
as well, to have that awareness. I suppose it's a spiritual awakening almost.
Yes, and opposite to what Catherine found. So you were seeing that through your father, but for yourself, Catherine, it was more, you weren't convinced by the version that your parents saw, that you were
Yes.
seeing.
And the other thing, like back to your question,
Yes.
if I was living a sinless or sinful life, or
Yes.
I long threw in the towel of those judgments, because I had seen life through the lens of my parents' judgments,
Yes.
if I was being good or bad. Whereas it was never accepted that I was just being, or it is what it
Yes.
is, or I was
Yeah.
just experiencing,
Life.
my boundaries and the repercussions of my actions on my own, so I could feel them in my own conscience if they were right or wrong.
Yes.
The shadow of God's judgment and God's wrath and God was used if their authority wasn't respected. So I didn't really care for a long time if it was good or sinful or not.
Yeah.
For a long time.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
So, Catherine, you were saying back when you were 12, you had been drawn to a Sunday school through a particular Sunday school servant. What was it that, and how long did that passion and that inquiring mind last for you at that time?
So it lasted as long as my attendance, which was for about a year.
Okay.
I was only going when I would spend time with my dad on the weekends while my parents were getting separated.
Okay.
And when that ceased and they had divorced and I had nothing to little to do with my dad, I had that relationship with that Sunday school teacher grow purely of our own effort.
Okay.
So while I wasn't in attendance to the Sunday school anymore, she always loved me wherever I was at. Even when I jigged school, she would offer her place to come and hang out.
Wow.
No judgment.
Yeah.
She would just accept me and my journey wherever it was. And we have flourished our relationship till now when I'm a mum and I've got kids.
Wow, that's
It's great.
amazing.
Even when I first arrived in the country, one of the first people I had to go and meet was her Sunday school teacher.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm quite
So
proud of her.
yes, she obviously had a massive impact on your life.
Yes.
And then you also mentioned that then this passion did die out then for some time until you were approximately 21.
21,
And
yes.
what was the catalyst then when you were 21?
So at 21, I was friends with a girl that was a singer, and she was singing at Hillsong Church. And we, I think I found a clique that was cool and welcoming and more approachable and relaxed of the expectations that I'd felt in previous churches, Catholic and Coptic.
Okay.
And I just felt like this was a perfect balance between what was Christ-like expectations of me, as well as first-generation Australian of me.
Yes.
I can relate.
Yeah, it was much more relatable for me. So I managed to delve in that space, and I got very close with the crowd. And in the infancy of my faith, I got pretty, disappointed with false expectations, and I learnt that first cycle of sting, where you have
Yes.
expectations of people because they are Christian, or what is a
Yes.
sin, and they should know better, do know better, did know better, things like that. So I realised I needed to walk my own journey and build my own story and faith, and I did that purely reliant on that first sting, because that should not have been the reason I kept going to church. And when I built that on my own through reading and prayer, I lost it because I had moved overseas.
Okay.
I'd moved overseas away from any kind of community that resembled where I was trying to find my spiritual nourishment. I moved to Dubai, and it did not have a church how you see church.
Right.
Church was held in hotel rooms, and even though I found something similar and their best effort, people are coming from all over the world, pouring in for the word with very little in common, and coming and going. Everyone's expats, so
Yes.
it's very hard to build community, but they sure did a great job trying. Anyway, between that and nothing to keep me accountable, and the type of job I did, I flew for Emirates Airlines. I would sleep, I don't know what was day or what was night.
Yes.
And so the parties just really cranked up, and the priority was sleep and work. And in my spare time, it was a lot of socialising.
Yes.
So it kind of died from
Yeah,
there.
exactly. It wasn't a priority at that time.
No.
We might finish the episode there, and then we'd love to have you back and discover more about your journey. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please join us again for the next episode of Now I See.